Welcome to Seller Sessions. I am your host today, Sharon Even, and in today's podcast, I am going to be speaking with you all about inspections and why specifically pre-shipment inspections are important always and forever on every single order. But I'm also going to tie it into why they're also even more important before Chinese New Year and after Chinese New Year. So first of all, I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. I'm filming this on the 23rd of December, 2 days before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates, and obviously Happy New Year as well, even though I'll see you all before the new year. And yeah, so today's podcast, I'd actually already pre-recorded it and it was going to be on Chinese New Year, but instead I'll put my recording up on my YouTube channel. And the reason that I had to last minute change my podcast is because Danny's going to do a podcast next week about Chinese New Year with Kian Golzari, who is a very good friend of mine. And I have absolutely no problem passing that subject on to him. Ken and I last year in 2020, before I joined Seller Sessions, did 2 shows together with Danny about inspections, or one show, I can't remember. We sort of didn't really agree on everything. Ken was like not really pro inspections at the time. I think he's more pro inspections today. But this is something that from like forever, this is a subject that I'm very, very passionate about from my own experiences as someone who has not physically been in China and not flown out to China and didn't do inspections myself. I've always looked at it as my inspection company is like my eyeballs in China. So it doesn't matter where you source, every single country, doesn't matter if you source from America or from Mexico or from Vietnam or from India, I don't know, Bangladesh, Malaysia, it doesn't matter where you source from. You should always, on every single order, and you'll probably hear me say this like 7 or 8 times during the podcast, you should always and forever, for every single order, it doesn't matter how much you trust your supplier, you should always have an inspection done. So I'm going to specifically talk about pre-shipment inspections, and soon I will share my screen. For anyone who is listening to us on the podcast, at some point I'm going to share my screen and go through a sample report of what an inspection report looks like. So you can either find this video on the Seller Sessions YouTube channel or on Facebook, or I'll just do my very best to explain stuff to you guys. All right, so let's start. So I'm actually going to start with how Chinese New Year impacts why I think that inspections are even more important when it comes to specifically inspections, why Chinese New Year is important. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, whatever I just said, what I meant was I'm going to explain why Chinese New Year impacts my opinion on inspections even more. So what happens that you guys need to understand before Chinese New Year next year, I'm pretty sure it's the year of the tiger in 2022, will be on the 1st of February, which means that most suppliers are going to start closing down between the 15th, probably to the 26th-ish. I've got one of my suppliers is closing down on the 26th. And one of our other suppliers are closing down on the 15th. And some of our other suppliers are closing down in between. So what you guys need to understand is during Chinese New Year, they close down, the factories close down their factories, obviously, and they send out their workers to go back home. Many of these workers do not live close to where the factories are, and it takes them days to get back to their homes. And every single factory closes down. No factory stays open. Every single one closes down. And what happens is a few things. One, they have insane, like a huge rush of work before Chinese New Year, because remember, it's not just sellers, it's people who manufacture in general, people who in general are making products. Everyone wants to get their products outside of China before Chinese New Year. So these manufacturers are getting a whole bunch of orders at a time, a million more orders than they may have had, a million more times of orders that they may usually have compared to what they usually have at the same time. And they have these deadlines, which is to get it out before Chinese New Year. So remember, if they're closing down on the 15th, you know, you want to get your orders out by first week of January, maximum early second week of January, which also there'll probably be this year specifically, next year specifically, a whole issue with the ports as well. But anyway, so they have this deadline, which means that some, not all, but many factories, they're rushing the work. They're working a lot faster. And when you're rushing the work and working a lot faster, in many scenarios, it impacts the quality. So this is one of the reasons why you should always have a pre-shipment inspection. But if for whatever stupid reason you don't, you should 100% have one around the Chinese New Year on every order that you have leaving China. You should not allow your products to enter the container or be picked up by your freight forwarder or whatever it is. You should not allow them to get on that without having a pre-shipment inspection. My experience and my opinion. And then what happens when they get back from Chinese New Year, which for some will be around the 10th of February, some will be around the 15th of February. It depends. You've got to speak to your supplier. Many of the same workers don't come back to that factory. Something that happens very often, the factory workers change. So you now have a new set of hands working physically on your products that they may have never worked in that type of factory. They may have never worked with that type of material. Plus, on top of that, not only do they in many scenarios have new workers, on top of that, they now have to get a whole bunch of orders that they didn't get ready before Chinese New Year. They need to get them ready now. And on top of that, during that month that they were on their Chinese New Year holiday, they're now getting a whole bunch of new orders added in as well. So there's chaos. They've got heaps and heaps of backlogs. They've got so much work, which in my experience causes quality issues. So that is why I think that, and I know that inspections are even more important around these types of times. So before Chinese New Year and after Chinese New Year, I would say is like one of the most important things. So that was a little bit about that. So there's many different types of inspections, like there's factory audits, there's pre-production inspections, there's mid-production inspections. I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to focus on the pre-shipment inspections. Now, what that means usually is there is something called the AQL standards, which is the accepted quality limit or accepted quality levels. And it is the amount of whatever the quantity of your order is, a certain amount of that needs to be checked. Not all of it needs to be checked. 100%. Some of you, it depends on your products, okay? Very product dependent, especially if you have like hand painted products or very difficult products or hard for manufacturing products. You may consider 100% inspection, but most of the time 100% inspection is not needed. And then you usually will go by AQL standards, which I will explain shortly. But let's first of all start from the very beginning of what a pre-shipment inspection is. So usually at around when more than 80% of your product has been made, you will get a pre-shipment inspection. You don't have to wait until 100% is made, but at least 80% needs to be made. For me, when I start to communicate with a supplier, one of the first questions that I ask is, do you allow for third-party inspections? If the answer is no, even if they were the best, like the best supplier for whatever, for pricing, if they were the best supplier in communication, I don't care. I will not continue working with them. It's a no, like any supplier that doesn't allow third-party inspections to come in, there's a problem. That's a huge red flag and you should never work with them. I shared this on my YouTube channel that on one of our brands about 3.5 or 4 years ago, we wanted to add a jade roller to one of our beauty brands. Yes, I know jade rollers are very, very saturated. This is 4 years ago before they were very saturated. And I'd already had a beauty brand and it was on brand. And I remember that we were reaching out to all these different suppliers. This is when like jade rollers had just become a thing overseas. They weren't anywhere as like they are today. Not something I would recommend for anyone to sell today. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that I was reaching out to all these suppliers and I was asking the questions that I always do. And one of them is, do you allow for third-party inspections? And every single one of them, apart from one, said no. And I had never gone through this in my life. I'd never gone through a scenario where every single every single supplier is saying no. Anyway, the one that did say yes, I got them to send me samples, and I could probably even find it here. And first of all, this is before they were made like newer versions on them, etc. It was really, really squeaky. Like it was really, really squeaky. And if you were to drop it, it would break as well because it was made out of jade. And then when I went back and I spoke to the suppliers, I understood that they had not passed so many inspections that they no longer allowed inspections. That eventually I ended up not adding jade rollers to our brand. And I'm happy that I didn't, even though many people, made a lot of exits through that. We ended up not doing that. But part of the reason was because I had believed that there was going to be a lot of quality issues. And I, at the time, 4 years ago, I wanted to stay away from that. But a lot of the reason to do that was also the fact that I'd never gone through a scenario where every single supplier won't allow a third-party inspection company. So that should always be a red flag for you. Now, when I say third-party inspection company, I personally don't work with like Alibaba inspection companies. I will never allow for the supplier to bring their own inspection companies. If I'm working with a sourcing agent, I don't want them to check it. I want to bring my own third-party inspection company. I specifically use a company called BD Inspections. I've been working with them, I think, for like 6 years or 5 years now. Long time. And they are amazing. And I've never, ever had an issue with them. And I want to bring my own inspection company in. So a pre-shipment inspection would mean that they basically come in when your order is done, but it doesn't have to be 100% done yet. And they inspect your product. They will already, today they've probably seen almost every product there is. They would already know things to check. But on top of that, this is why knowing your product so well and what sort of quality issues your product is prone to have, it's important that you know that in advance so that you can give them the things that are important for them to check. I specifically have a quality control sheet that I give to my inspection company for new products, where I tell them in advance, I want you to check this. I want you to check smell. I want you to check, to do a drop test. I want you to check this. I want you to check that. Like whatever is important for that specific product. It's very product specific. Sometimes they will come up with things that I didn't even think about checking. And sometimes they would have never checked if I would have not asked them to check that specific thing. And that's why knowing your product is very, very important in my opinion. So the reason that this is so important is because you do not want your customer to be the one to tell you about a quality issue of your product. That is like the worst thing that could happen to you. It's beyond even just Amazon, like in general, when you are creating products, as someone who's been creating products for my entire adult life, basically, it's something that, you don't want to find out through your customers. It's something that if there is a quality problem, you want to know before it's too late. And why we do this before, we always get the inspection done before we pay the final payment. So if your terms are 30/70, meaning you pay 30 in advance, 70 just before shipment, you don't pay the final 70% until they pass inspection. So this is something that is really, really crucial. Lost my train of thought, but anyway, and let's talk about now AQL standards. So I am going to share my screen. So this is from Kima. I personally don't use Kima, but you could use them if you wanted to. This is an AQL sampling simulator, which is really, really awesome. It makes it a lot easier for you to, hold on, I just want to, okay. It makes it a lot easier for you to be able to know how many units you should get checked. So let me explain. You don't need to have 100% of your goods inspected for like non-complicated products. Okay, you will have a percentage of that of the order inspected, and then according to the AQL standards that you stick to, a percentage of the sample, a certain percentage of this a certain percentage of the percentage that you check, there are different standards and there's different types of defects. There's minor, major, and critical. Okay, so for example, if we use, this is a report, I'm just going to really, I'll go back to this report. I'm now, guys, listening to the podcast, I'm now showing a report. Let me just see here. This specific one had 390 sets. Okay, and they ended up checking 80 sets out of that 390, which is technically a lot of units out of the 390, but I think 80 should honestly be the minimum anyway. So let's just have a look at what these, what the AQL standard numbers look like. So I'm currently at the top. We have this, we've got two different charts here. One of the charts shows us the lot size and then general inspection levels and special inspection levels. Today, we're going to stick to general inspection levels. There's level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1, 2, and 3 basically mean like the more, 1, they will check less units, 2, they'll check more units, 3, they'll check the most amount of units. Most people in my experience stick to level 2. You could go to level 3. So in our example, there's 390 units. 390 units would be the lot size between 281 to 500 units, like I'm showing on the screen, which means if I was to stick to level 1, I would then be on F. If I was to stick to level 2, I would be on H. And if I was to stick to level 3, I would be on J. Okay, H would be the typical one. J would be like if you want to have more units inspected. And then we have another chart under that where it says here the sample size. So remember we had here F, H, and J. So F is here, H is here, and J is here. I hope you guys can see my mouse moving. If I was to stick to 2.5% of the sample, which is what I usually stick to, 2.5%, this is the percentage of the sample, how many defects you can have maximum. F is saying that we would only need to check 20 units, which is like ridiculously low amount. And if I was to stick to 2.5%, that means that there could only be 1 defect. Okay, and 2 would already make a failed inspection. If I was to stick to, what was the second one? H. If I was to stick to H, H would be 50. Okay, 50 units. And if I go to 50 units to check from the 390, 2.5% of that would be 3 minors would be the maximum that I could have, and 4 would already be a fail. This is defects, minor defects. I'll explain that in a second. And then J is the 80 units, which is good, a good amount that would be inspected. That would be the GI level 3. 80 units out of the 390, and 2.5% would be that you can have a maximum of 5 defects, and 6 is already going to be a fail. Now, if you want to save yourself from having to look at this chart, even though it's so easy to understand, like once you know what each thing means, it's super, super easy. You can use an AQL sampling simulator. Kima has one, many different inspection companies have one. And so if I was to put here, like, let's just say that I have 5,000 units and my inspection level is inspection level 3. Okay, it's showing me that minor, if I was to do a AQL 2.5, minor, I can have a minimum of 15 defects. Sorry, 14, 15 would be rejected. Major defects, I can have a maximum of 14, and critical, a maximum of 0. So actually, from my knowledge, it's not 14 and 14. It's just all up 14 from memory. I have not had major defects in ages, thank God. So this is something that you can use. And obviously, if I was to change that now to inspection level 2, okay, you can see it's giving me less, saying that I can have a maximum of 10 defects. So it's 10 defects in general. That's what it is, 10 defects in general. And now we're going to look here. So ours was 390. And we will stick to inspection level 2, and we'll go by 2.5. So for 390, you can have a maximum of 3. No, we went by 4, didn't we? Okay. Was it 4? Hold on, let's see. There you go, 80 units, 2.5. Okay, so in their scenario, they had checked here, we saw they checked 80 sets. So it means that they went by AQL inspection level 3, which means 5, there can only be 5 defects, and 6 would already be a reject. Now, soon you'll see that that's not what happened here. I don't know the reason why, but there must have been a reason why for this. So we'll see here. Okay, so this is what an inspection report will look like. Different inspection companies have different inspection reports. BD specifically, they send you this, you get this the day after, and then usually a couple of days later, you get a final report, and you also get, apart from images, you also get videos. Every inspection company will be different, basically. And their reports, this is a very old sample report. Their reports are a little bit more upgraded today. But again, every company will be a little bit different. So you'll see here, it tells us what the product is, and the model number, the quantity, which is 390, the inspection date, you can see here, the time that the inspector arrived, at the time the inspector left, who is the inspector, and who was the supervisor from BD inspections. You can see here, quantity check result has been a pass. It says total 390 sets were finished and packed into the outer carton for inspection. Product appearance pass, appearance is acceptable. Same as client provided pictures. Product finishing artwork, it says pending, found 11 minor defects among 80 set samples. Factory has report on site 7 of them. Or maybe it says picture 7. Okay, factory has repaired on site. So they may have repaired those 11 defects. And I'm pretty sure P7 means picture 7. Product coloring, print. So this is pending. They haven't put failed yet. Product color painting, product color or printing. Color and printing are at the same level. Product size and weight are stable, that should say. Plus you can see the chart on picture 5. Packing cartons and marks is pending. No shipping mark or label was found on the carton, which should be a problem. Okay, basic function checks. You guys can like pause this video later or go back and have a look. You can look at all this. They've got a pass here on everything. They're showing how many samples of each thing they checked. And you can see here, even this, you see zipper test. The product must have a zipper, and it says pass. They check 10 of them, open and close the zipper 10 times, and it passes, which is important if you have a product with a zipper. Again, every single product, you will make sure that different things are checked, right? So here there's like a basic function check, charging test, battery fitting check, assembly test, application test, logo printing, zipper, smelling check, barcode scanning check, etc. Okay, all these things are very important. And you can see here it says minor, and there are 11 defects found. So technically that should be a fail, because remember here, there should only be a maximum of 5. Okay, if you were to go down from different levels, go up for different levels, like a maximum. So they went by this, I can see. Yeah, okay, acceptable or rejected. They went 7, 8, which means that their AQL standard was 4. So they went by AQL standard 4 for minor, which means that they could have a maximum of 7, what do you call it? defects, and 8 would already be a fail. So this should be a fail, and it probably was a fail. It says pending here. Total 390 sets had been finished and packed into the outer carton for inspection. Total 80 set samples from mass production by random for inspection. Based on upper comments, the inspection result is pending. This report is only responsible for the, okay, that's blah, blah, blah. It was probably a fail. I would say that it was a fail at the end. It had to be. So you can see here, I'm going to whip through this really quickly. Quantity, it's showing you the different quantities for different things, the measurements of the products, the gift box measurements, the measurements and weight of the outer carton. You can see here the BD's inspection inspector on site. You can see an image of the different 80 units that they checked. Okay, this is what an inspection report should look like. You should have images of everything, which is basically your proof of everything. Inspected samples, so more photos. You can see here more photos. Defect list. So now it's showing what was the issue that they found and how many units they found with what issues. So we can see here glue mark on unit. There was 1 glue mark on out of the 80 units. Dirty stain, there were 4 with dirty stains on them. Untrimmed threads, there were 6 with that. All up, that's 11 minor defects. And then you've got images here. Glue mark on unit, and it's saying that it's a minor. Dirty stain on unit, and it's saying that it's a minor. Dirty stain on unit, dirty stain on unit. So maybe these are like small things that possibly a customer would not complain about, but it is, you know, and obviously it would be up to you whether it's acceptable or not. For me, it's unacceptable. I want my products to be clean. But maybe because these really are minor defects, maybe this would not have been the make or break for you, or you may have not decided to stop a shipment. I personally would have asked them to redo this, and I probably would have had another inspection done. It depends on what your relationship is like with your supplier. I may, if it was my suppliers that I've been working with for a long time, I probably would have trusted them to fix it, to be honest, because I've been working with them for like 6+ years. So we have a great relationship, and I do trust that they would fix this if they, you know, I'd ask them to open them all up again and clean them. Probably, and then I probably wouldn't even need to have another inspection. But if you haven't been working with a supplier for a long time, then you should. Dirty stain, you can see here, untrimmed threads. So you've got images basically of all of the defects here. It's showing you the cargoes, the cartons here. It's showing you carton overview. It's showing you how they're packing it in the cartons. It's showing you how big the carton, what the size of the carton is, which is really awesome to see as well. It's showing you the packaging side, the packaging of the product. It's showing you all sorts of different, you know, images of different views and details that you have on the packaging. It's showing you your barcode. It's showing you how it looks when you open it up. You can see exactly what it looks like. When they open up the product, step by step, what the customer would end up seeing and what they've seen. Okay, it's showing you here the polybag suffocation warning. You can see that. It's showing you the air holes, showing you what the entire products look like when they're open, what the entire products look like when they're packaged. A user manual, it's showing you the batteries, the unit view, like everything that's equivalent, like important for this specific product. Okay, the adapter, etc., the glasses, all sorts of different images of the actual products, what they look like from all angles, the different markings that they have on them, different markings that the battery has on them. This product comes with a tripod, so it's showing you photos of that as well. More barcodes, more photos of that, showing you the made in China, which is like by law, you have to have that. Very important as well. Okay, there must be like many products here with batteries as well. And then this is also really, really important. It's showing you the carton size. Remember that Amazon has certain sizes that you're allowed to send in the cartons, right? So it's showing you the carton size, where they've actually taken a photo with a meter there or a ruler. They're showing you the packaging size from all angles. if you ever have an issue with the size of your product with Amazon, you can use an inspection like this as proof to Amazon that whatever their sizing is wrong, and you can then ask them to do a rescan of your product for the sizing and weight. So it also shows that. Again, this is like really, really important for you to have as well. It should also show the weight at some point. I'm just trying to like go through this because I feel like I'm on this one report forever. Okay, here it's also showing the functionality of the product. So obviously different products will have different functionalities. Okay, like if you have a kettle, they will literally put water in it and check how hot the water is. They will do all those. It depends on what the products are. So they're checking the functionality of this product. This has like a laser beam. I'm guessing they're checking how it is, etc., etc. It's showing their office image, and that's the end of the report. And that is what an inspection will look like. And if you look back, a report will look like, if you look back at the very top, God, it takes so long to get back to the top. It will say here, inspection video available. Please see the related videos. So what that means is that they would have also received a video as well. So that is some basic stuff about inspections and AQL levels, minor defects. So there's minor defects, major defects, and crucial defects. Like they're pretty logical. So, minor defects are like subtle or insignificant issues that you'd have with your product. Major defects are usually things that can affect the functionality of the product or the appearance of the product. And crucial defects is something that can usually increase the chances of the product either causing harm to the buyer or it makes the product unusable, for example. So like for me, I don't want to have any crucial defects. Again, it depends on the amount of units that you've ordered. But as you can see, like this is an inspection like this is basically your eyeballs, right? You have to also make sure that you're using a reputable inspection company. Spend about a minute talking about bribery. Bribery is a huge thing in China. Really, really huge thing. I spoke about this also last year when Danny, Kian, and I spoke about inspections. And again, Kian and I didn't 100% agree with this, but from my experience, I know that bribery is a big thing where the company will bribe the inspectors. They may give them $50, $100, $200 just to pass the product. And it's a tough one. But BD inspections and inspection company that I use, I know that like 100%. I can't say 100% because you never know what happens, but they have an anti-bribery policy. They get each one of their inspectors to sign a legal contract before every single inspection that they were not bribed. Of course, shit happens in this world, so there's no 100%. But I've never ever had had a problem with BD. And of course, there are many reputable inspection companies out there. But bribery is like a real thing that you need to know that exists. So I hope that today's podcast helped you guys to understand why inspections are so important, how many units or how to check how many units of your cargo should be inspected, and also why it's so important to have an inspection done always on every single order. And maybe I didn't explain this, so I will actually spend another minute explaining that. It doesn't matter what your relationship is like with your supplier. I don't care how, like if you're best friends, it doesn't matter. Shit happens on the production line. How many times have you heard that huge companies have had to recall a certain batch of products because there was a problem with it? It happens, right? Like shit happens in manufacturing, everything in life, but specifically in manufacturing, and it can happen even to the best suppliers in the world that you're best friends with. If a supplier is, like insulted by you asking for an inspection, it's on them. It does not represent your trust level. It just represents your professionalism and the respect that you also have for your customer, and also how important your business is to you. So I've had someone from the supply chain world say to me, you know, if it was me, I'd be insulted. And I was like, then be insulted. You know, it's not my problem, it's yours. I would just come and explain this to you, that it has nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter if you've been my manufacturer for 10 years. There could be a fuck up on that specific cargo. And this has happened to me in the past. I even made a YouTube video about it, I think like 2 years ago. And I said that I've always and forever had inspections. And there was this one time that I had to get this order out as soon as possible. I just had to get it out. And I skipped an inspection. First and last time I will ever do this in my life. And that specific one was air shipping because it was an urgent order. And I have the most, for this specific product line, I have the most amazing supplier. And she messaged me that the product had already been picked up without an inspection. First and last time I'll ever do it. It had already been picked up and it's on the way, and it's Air Express. The likelihood of you being able to stop an Air Express delivery address is like almost zero. Anyway, and the products are on the way, and the supplier sends me a message and says, Sharon, there's a major problem with this batch. I just checked myself some of the units and there's a problem. You have to stop the shipment, the cargo from arriving at Amazon because it was being sent to Amazon. I want you to know that this is so not to be taken for granted of. Like this is something that usually doesn't happen. This happens with like 1 in a million. That's how the supplier is. She's 1 in a million. She's just absolutely freaking amazing, right? If she wasn't, that those amount of units would have arrived at Amazon, and some of them did, and I'll explain what happened with that after. It would have arrived at Amazon, and that would have been like a lot of returns and a lot of bad reviews. So after that happened, while that happened, this is actually how I met, I think this is how I met Rafael Albaz. I'm pretty sure it is how my relationship with Unicargo happened. It's almost impossible to stop the delivery of a Air Express shipment. And I had contacted Unicargo to help me, because I had to try and stop these cartons. I was able to I think it was, we were able to stop all but 2 cartons from my memory. This is a long time ago. And with those 2 cartons, now this is what happens when you send stock into Amazon. When you send stock into Amazon, you have to, and there's a problem with that stock. You have to wait until Amazon fully accepts all of the stock before you can create a removal order. So this could take months, because first Amazon has to accept the stock, and then they have to send it to all the different fulfillment centers. And then after they send it to all the fulfillment centers, only then can you create a removal order. And then during that time, if this was the only stock for the product that you have, you're out of stock. So not only is it going to cost you way more money because you're now got your listing closed for, I don't know, a month or 2, then you have to create a removal order, which costs money. Then you have to get the product either sent to a 3PL, or you have to dispose of the product, or you have to send it. Like there's different scenarios, different things. The amount of money that you will lose, you should have just paid 300 to 400, it can be 200 to 400, depends on how many manpower days you need for the inspection. That would have saved you having to go through that headache. So sometimes people are cheap and they try to avoid having an inspection, and in the end they'll cry about it, because shit happens in manufacturing, and shit happens when you create products, and that one batch that you didn't get an inspection on or whatever, that ended up being the fucked up batch, and now you're in way more problems. And for me, and I say this for me, for that specific time, first and last time it ever happened, so my product would have taken 2 more days. Instead, now we were out of stock for a long time because they had to create the new batch and get that sent into Amazon, and we were out of stock for a long time. If only I would have waited those 2 days. So don't make those mistakes. Pay however much. I said 200, but really it's like between like $190 to $300 usually, something like that, per manpower day. And that's it. So I'm going to end it here. I feel like I spoke a lot. So I hope this podcast helped you all. There was a lot of information here. The inspection company that I recommend is BD Inspections. You can just look them up on Google, or you can contact me. I'll give you their details. And that's it. Isabella will be back on Monday. Danny will be back on Tuesday. And everyone have an amazing Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I will see you all next week.